Sohil,
Yes, Courtney.
when I ran the job, it ran but didn't load any data in SCD. Dim customer table. Maybe those keys field were not mapped properly. It
Just
was
check
not
what.
showing. It was not showing any statistics of how many rows processed on those details.
One second. One second, I'll check. Give me a minute. I'm just making some changes there. Just check that have you mapped the connections, the source fields which you required is correctly.
Mhm.
Hello. Yes, Rama. Means no, I was not speaking anything. I was just give you guys time to do it. I was just trying myself something. Hello. Is it work for anyone? Yes, no.
I still didn't map the type 2 fields properly, it seems.
Just check what I have done. Is it matching the same thing what you have done?
Customer ID, auto income.
See, the basic idea is the key field from the source will go to the keys. Type 0 will go to the type 0. Type 1 will go to the type 1, means on which we want to do it. Type 2 will go to the type 2. Surrogate key, which we want to do at the table level, will become the the field. Okay. And then the fields which has to go to the versioning, they will go to the versioning.
So no type 2 fields here, no need to define type 2 fields.
No,
Customer
I've
ID
not
at
built I've not built type 2 as of now. I'm just, we're starting with type 1 and then we will go to the type. How is it going? Are we able to do it? Yes, no, let me know. Otherwise, I will just go through it once again.
Yes, Sahil. Can you repeat the steps once again? Like,
Sure, sure. I'll do it. Just give me a second. 1 second. Sure. 'Alright, so what we are doing is we are doing the SCD one. So first, just I will have to show you some another components also. So there is something. Remember when we talk on the last session, we talk about the DB connection, right? And then what we have done is we have connected our DB connection with the input, and then we have created a commit as well, right? So now what happens is when you have to manage your this thing, a job, right? There is something called pre-job and there's something called post-job. So these pre-job and the post-job is basically used when you're executing a job, right? Means this is going to be considered as the main job. All the artifact, all the components connected to it, either they're connected through your what I would say. uh, there are sub-components or something, but that's going to be considered all as the main job, right? So if you want to initialize anything before the job, then you will can add simply a pre-job component, and then you'll say that if the component is okay, then so what I've done is I've just added a connection to it. Then what next I have done is I have specified here I've took my customer only the required information which is required from the customer. So what are the information required? Customer ID, first name, last name, email. Okay, I mean this is the query we can modify. So if you will look at the source query, right, there are the many fields. Means let's say we said we don't need store ID, address ID, active, created, and the last updated date. So I'm just going to ignore those fields as, and we have considered that customer ID is going to be our source key, correct? So once customer ID is our source key, we have identified, and the fields which we want to use we have identified. Then what next we have to do is we will simply drag and drop our SCD component from the DB common inside the databases. Okay. So once this is done, then what you have to do is you have to specify the table. If it is, does not exist, you have the option to create a table as well, or by default, if it is available, you can simply specify the table as well. Okay. Then connect your source and the target. Main thing starts when you will go to the SCD editor. So here in the SCD editor, you will be having the columns which is coming from the source, right? So inside the source key, you have to specify the columns which is going to be done with the help of your, which is going to be used for your identifying the new record and the existing record. Okay, so the customer ID is going to be the one which we are going to use. Then there is something called surrogate key, like a primary key, right? So surrogate key, there are different ways to generate it. One is auto increment if we haven't specified anything at the database level. Let's see what I mean here is. So here, if you will see for this primary key, we have specified the auto increment with the help of this option, auto increment, right? So we have specified that field here. So it become auto increment for that particular database. Then what are the fields which we want to use into the table that we specified, means which we want to use for the changes? Means if any of the value will change into any of those fields, that we have to keep track of those changes, have to update the data. So that's why we've given them as a part of the type 1 fields. Email, first name and last name. Means it's up to us. Let's say you don't want to check based on the email, then you can, bring it back to the unused field, or you can say that the type 0 field as well. So what will happen is if there is any change over, so be going to be there, you won't be able to track them. So, but in case if we need, we can bring them here. Let's say you want to say that if there is any change into the SCD for the email, you want to make it type 2, then you can simply then you can bring it to the type 2. Means what will happen is in case if there is any changes is going to be found on the email, then this is going to act as a type 2. Then what happens is here we have to specify the fields which we want to add into our date, the versioning, basically start date and the end date, or I will say insert date and the update date. Okay, so here we have the option to specify this. What we need is we want to capture this as a job start time, or we have the option to specify input field. So if we have the input field, then we have to specify from here. Means let's say you want to use it from the source, any field which you want to use to capture the start date and the end date, so that you have to specify here, right? And by default, as we are working on type 1, means by default it is going to be null, right? And will only be captured automatically, right? And when and will happen when there is a previous report has been updated. So same thing, that's why we specified end as a null. If you will specify as a fixed value, then whatever the high end value it is going to be there, right, that we can put it here. Then if we are working with the SCD type tool, and if we need the versioning as well, then we can specify the versioning of the data also. So what will happen is automatically versioning is going to get generated. And then if you want SCD active or inactive, let's say the flag thing, means we have the option to modify the column as well. It can directly, whatever the columns we have created into the table, those column names we can specify here, right? So once this is done, click OK, and now this portion of your slowly changing dimension is ready. In case if you want to add a error handling to it, I have just added the reject to it. And as we mentioned that as it is the SCD component, right? So it's going to be commit automatically here. In case if you want to add the commit to it, then you can just add a post job and a T commit step as well, and that's going to commit the data. So that's how it is. Now let's see if I will execute this again. There should not be any update into the database. Get method. Sorry. The components are not available. That's why I have to disable them, and the table is already there. So make sure that the table structure should be synchronized with the target. So now if you see, it is showing that 599 record has been passed, but let's see if we have anything with the database. How many we have? We are still having only the 599 records only, which is coming from the source. So now if you will make any changes to the source, update it here, then the same should get updated at the target as well. So let's say I'm going to So the update has been captured here as well, right? So this is the how you can create SCD1. Now let's say if you want to make it as SCD2, then what happens is whatever the fields on which you want to make it as the SCD2, right? So let's say we have already said that for the email you want to make it as SCD2. So let's see what happens when we update the email. Let's say I'm going to take this one. Okay, data has been updated. So we have the end date with us, and then we have a new record also with us, right? So see, this how you can make a SCD1, SCD type 2 also, correct? So this is the purpose of that. So it means only one record has been changed, right? So customer PK is 600, customer ID as it is the primary key, definitely it is going to be one only. So if I will sort the data based on my order by, let's say, customer underscore ID, I can see that two records are there when it has been and when it has been started. Those things have been mentioned and the customer primary key also has been updated here. Right, so this is how you can maintain your slowly changing dimension with the help of your TSCD component. If we will talk about SCD3, then we have to specify the fields which is going to be for the type 3. As it is not in use, we will see it, but let's first finish our type 1 and type 2. Does it make sense now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just do it quickly. Complete this SCD1 so you have the hands-on, because after that what we'll do is we will show that how using how we can put all those things together. So let's say we have data coming from a file, we have loaded into a database, and then from that we have read the data and loading into our dimension, and how we can execute those two jobs in one by one with the help of the job components what we have into the talent. All right, so let's take a 15 minutes break. In the meantime, you can complete